The silence of space shattered, as reality itself seemed to tear open. A massive rift in the fabric of the universe appeared above Earth's pale moon, crackling with energy that made nearby satellites spin helplessly off course. From this wound, in space emerged something that defied human understanding of scale. The Zephyrian dreadnought Eternal Dominion was a monument to conquest, its hull stretching 15 kilometers of midnight black metal scarred by countless battles. Weapon ports ran along its surface like glowing eyes, each one capable of turning a city to glass. The ship moved with the terrible grace of a predator, its engines casting an eerie blue glow across the lunar surface below. On the bridge of this floating fortress, Admiral Vextar studied the holographic display showing the small blue world ahead. His reptilian features were harsh under the red combat lighting, scales gleaming as he turned the pages of a digital file marked in alien script. The translation read simply, Species, Human, Threat Level, Minimal, Classification, Primitive. Technology. He had read dozens of such files. The pattern was always the same. A young species discovers faster than light travel, expands to a few nearby worlds, then encounters the Zephyrian Empire. Within weeks, they either kneel or burn. The choice was always theirs, though the outcome remained constant. Communications. Officer Dalmer. Vextar's voice rumbled across the bridge. Open a channel to the primary world. Use the standard conquest protocol. Meanwhile, 300 kilometers beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, President Kim Tae-ho sat in a bunker that officially did not exist. The walls were lined with screens showing data streams from across human space, while technicians in military uniforms monitored communications from 47 human colonies scattered across known space. The emergency alert had awakened every major world leader 20 minutes ago. The message was simple and terrifying. Unknown alien fleet detected at the edge of the solar system. First contact protocols were now in effect. Kim Tae-ho was reviewing casualty projections when the main screen flickered to life. The image that appeared made several technicians step backward in instinctive fear. The alien was clearly reptilian, with golden eyes that seemed to see through the camera directly into their souls. When it spoke, the computer's translation system struggled to keep up with the complex alien language. Primitive species of the third planet. The voice was cold, mechanical through the translators, devoid of any emotion that humans might recognize as compassion or mercy. I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. Your species has attracted our attention through your crude expansion into nearby systems. Defense Minister Park Min-soo leaned forward, studying the readings streaming in from their deep space sensor networks. The numbers were devastating. 312 confirmed alien vessels, ranging from fighters to massive battleships. Their own unified Earth Defense Force could barely manage 40 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. The alien continued speaking, each word falling like a hammer blow. You have 72 standard hours to surrender. Unconditionally. Your compliance terms are as follows. 60% of all planetary resources will be transferred to Imperial control immediately. 30% of your total population will be relocated for labor assignments throughout the Empire. Your military forces will be dissolved, and your governments will answer directly to Imperial governors. A technician whispered urgently to Park Min-soo. Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from their ships. Each of their main vessels has firepower equivalent to our entire fleet. Kim Tae-ho felt the weight of 7 billion lives pressing down on his shoulders. But instead of despair, something else flickered in his eyes. Something the aliens had not accounted for in their files about humanity. This ultimatum is not negotiable, Vextar continued. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your species and the claiming of your worlds as imperial territory. You have witnessed our fleet. You understand your situation. Choose wisely. The transmission cut to black, leaving the bunker in tense silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Kim Tae-ho reached for a communication device that looked remarkably advanced for a supposedly primitive species. Send the code word Phoenix to all colonies, he said quietly. Tell them the day we prepared for has arrived. Tell them, it's time. The message went out on quantum channels that the Zephyrians could not detect, reaching human colonies across 50 light-years in minutes. On mining worlds, farming planets, and research stations, similar scenes played out as governors and administrators received the same simple code word. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Vextar allowed himself a satisfied smile. His reptilian features twisted into what his species considered an expression of pleasure. Another primitive species would kneel within days, just like the 47 others that had encountered Imperial might. The pattern never changed. But, in the depths of space, in hidden installations the Empire's sensors had never detected, something stirred. Humanity had been preparing for this moment longer than the aliens could possibly imagine. 73 hours had passed since the ultimatum expired. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, expecting reports of human surrender broadcasts from across their pitiful little empire. Instead, his tactical officer, Zekran, burst through the command deck doors, his usually calm demeanor shattered. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes across all human worlds." Zekran's voice cracked as he spoke. "They're not surrendering, they're destroying everything." The main tactical display flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of human space. Red warning icons appeared across dozens of worlds, each one indicating catastrophic energy releases. Vextar watched in stunned silence as the readings climbed beyond anything their sensors had ever recorded from this primitive species. "Impossible," he whispered. "Show me visual confirmation." On the colony world of New Sol, Governor Lee So-young stood on the observation deck of the Planetary Command Center, watching the final civilian transport disappear into the star-filled sky. The ship carried 30,000 colonists, farmers, teachers and children who had called this world home for 3 generations. Behind her, engineering teams in environmental suits moved with practiced efficiency through the massive terraforming stations that had turned this barren rock into a garden world. The fusion charges they placed were small, elegant devices that hummed with contained power. Each one was precisely positioned to cause maximum structural damage to the atmospheric processors, the gravity generators, and the massive fusion reactors that powered the colony. Lieutenant Han Kyung-ho approached with his data pad showing green status lights across the board. "All civilians clear, Governor. The last transport cleared orbital space 2 minutes ago." Lee So-young nodded, her hand hovering over the communication device that would seal the fate of the world she had governed for 8 years. She thought of the apple orchards that bloomed every spring, the crystal lakes where children learned to swim, the bustling markets where 3 different human cultures had blended into something new and beautiful. "This is New Sol Control to all stations." She keyed her comm unit, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to do. "Beginning Phoenix Protocol in 60 seconds, all personnel to minimum safe distance." The countdown began as teams across the planet activated identical sequences. In the capital city of Neo-Busan, massive towers that controlled the weather began shutting down in carefully timed intervals. In the agricultural zones, automated systems that had taken decades to perfect started overloading their power cores. 60 seconds later, New Sol burned. The destruction was beautiful and terrible. Fusion reactors overloaded in brilliant white, flashes that could be seen from orbit. Atmospheric processors exploded in cascading chain reactions that sent mushroom clouds of superheated gas into the sky. The carefully maintained ecosystem that had taken 3 generations to build collapsed in minutes. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out with the precision of a symphony of destruction. On the farming world of Hanguk 2, Administrator Choi, Minjun stood in the central control room overlooking grain silos that stretched to the horizon. These massive structures held enough food to feed 10 million people for a year. The automated harvesting machines that moved between them like giant metal insects had been humanity's answer to galactic food security. "Begin Sequence 7, he ordered quietly. The explosions started at the furthest silos and moved inward like a wave of fire. Each detonation was timed to create maximum destruction while avoiding harm to the wildlife that humans had carefully introduced to this world. The great fields. of golden grain vanished in walls of flame that turned the sky orange for 300 kilometers in every direction. On mining planet Daihan, Supervisor Yoon Hee-jin watched from the safety of an orbital platform as the primary extraction facilities collapsed into the planet's crust. The mining tunnels that stretched thousands of kilometers underground had been humanity's most ambitious engineering project, extracting rare metals essential for faster-than-light travel. The controlled demolition used the planet's own geological instability against itself. Carefully placed charges triggered seismic events that caused the mining complexes to fold inward like closing flowers. Within hours, mining equipment worth trillions of credits disappeared beneath millions of tons of rock and metal. Similar destructions rippled across human space. Research stations deleted decades of scientific data before overloading their reactors. Shipyards turned their construction lasers on their own facilities, cutting through hull plating and support structures with surgical precision. Orbital habitats vented their atmospheres and sent themselves tumbling into nearby stars. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display that now showed nothing but smoking ruins where prosperous human colonies should have been. The energy readings were off the charts, indicating destruction on a scale that defied military logic. Tactical analysis, he demanded. Sir, preliminary scans show complete infrastructure collapse across 12 human worlds. No military targets remain intact, no resource extraction facilities operational, no population centers detecting life, signs above background levels. Vextar's reptilian features twisted in confusion. In 47 previous conquests, he had never encountered anything like this. Species fought back, certainly. They deployed their weapons, marshaled their fleets, made desperate last stands that the Imperial historians would record as footnotes, but this was something else entirely. What kind of species destroys their own worlds rather than surrender? Them? He asked the empty bridge. None of his officers had an answer. In the Empire's vast databases of conquered species, there was no precedent for this level of self-destruction. The humans had turned their entire civilization into ash rather than let it fall into alien hands. What the Admiral didn't realize was that this was only the beginning. The first Zephyrian dropships descended through the smoky atmosphere of New Sol, like metal vultures, their engines screaming as they cut through clouds of ash and burning debris. The landing craft were massive, each one designed to carry 1,000 Imperial troops and enough equipment to establish an occupation base. But as they touched down on what should have been a bustling spaceport, the soldiers found only twisted metal and empty foundations. Commander Thekval led the first scouting party through the ruins, his armor's sensors struggling to penetrate. The thick smoke that covered everything. Where intelligence reports had shown a thriving city of 2 million humans, he found only the skeletal remains of buildings and streets filled with cooling rubble. Command, this is Scout Team Alpha, he reported through his comm unit. No signs of resistance, no signs of life. The entire settlement appears to have been systematically destroyed. On Earth, the destruction was even more complete. Captain Nam Jiwoo moved through the burning ruins of Busan with his demolition team, their environmental suits protecting them from the toxic smoke that rolled through the streets. The great port city that had once connected Korea to the stars was now a landscape of fire and twisted steel. Ancient temples that had stood for centuries were carefully collapsed, their priceless artifacts already removed. Skyscrapers that had housed millions of people came down in controlled demolitions that sent pillars of dust into the orange sky. Even the famous fish markets, where vendors had sold their catch for generations, were burning as fuel depots added to the inferno. Captain, the cultural preservation teams are requesting final confirmation. Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin approached through the smoke, her datapad glowing in the dim light. All historical archives have been transferred to the deep storage ships? Nam Ji-woo paused in his work, looking at the centuries-old Buddhist temple that his teams were preparing to destroy. Inside, monks had once meditated and preserved ancient wisdom. Now it would become ash to deny the aliens even the smallest victory. Confirmed, Lieutenant. The museums, libraries, university databases, even the genetic seed banks from the agricultural centers, everything is aboard the Ark ships in dark space, Not a single piece of human knowledge will fall into their claws. The lieutenant nodded and spoke into her comm device. All teams, this is command. Cultural preservation complete. Begin final phase. Across the city, the last demolition charges activated. The Busan Tower, a symbol of human achievement that had reached toward the stars for 200 years, folded in on itself like a closing flower. The National Library, with its billions of digital records, disappeared in a flash of vaporized concrete and metal. Similar scenes played out across Earth's continents. In what had once been London, Paris, and New York, human teams worked with mechanical precision to erase every trace of their civilization's achievements. The aliens would find no art to study, no technology to reverse engineer, no culture to suppress. The scope of the destruction became clear as more Zephyrian landing forces touched down on world after world, finding the same devastating emptiness. Their military doctrine had been perfected over centuries of conquest. They would land overwhelming force, occupy key population centers, seize resource production facilities, and establish imperial control within days. But how do you occupy Ash? How do you control a population that no longer exists? How do you extract resources from facilities that have been reduced to radioactive craters? Admiral Vextar stood in the war room of the Eternal Dominion, staring at holographic displays that showed the impossible. 37 human worlds, each one following the exact same pattern. Complete infrastructure destruction, total population, evacuation, systematic elimination of anything that might have value to the Empire. Intelligence Officer Mordak, he called to his subordinate, explain this to me. What strategic advantage do the humans gain by destroying their own worlds? The younger alien studied his reports nervously. Sir, our xenopsychology experts are confused. This behavior pattern exists in no known species database. The humans have gained no tactical advantage through these actions. They have simply denied us the spoils of conquest. Denied us? Vextar's voice rose to a roar that echoed through the command center. We came here to expand the Empire, to claim new worlds and populations. What have we claimed? Radioactive wastelands and empty space. The truth was dawning on the Imperial command structure. They had conquered 37 dead planets. Their occupation forces were now managing graveyards. The great Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated this sector of the galaxy for 1,000 years, had been handed a victory that felt suspiciously like defeat. Far from the burned worlds, in the cold darkness between stars, a different kind of ship drifted silently through space. The vessel looked nothing like the sleek warships that had fought the Empire's scouts, or the civilian transports that had fled the dying worlds. This was something else entirely. A mobile command center designed to operate in the deep void, where no sensors could find it. Admiral Kang Hae-won stood on the bridge of this hidden vessel, reviewing tactical reports from across human space. Her uniform bore no national insignia, no planetary markings. She represented something the aliens had not anticipated, a unified human command structure that existed independent of any world. Phase 1 status report, she requested. Commander. Song Minji stepped forward with her datapad. Phase 1 complete, Admiral. All civilian populations evacuated to deep space installations. Phoenix Protocol successful across all 37 colonies. 0 strategic assets captured by Imperial forces. 0 human technology compromised. The Admiral allowed herself a small smile. Casualties? Minimal. Volunteer demolition teams all extracted successfully. The Empire now controls 37 dead rocks with no military, economic, or strategic value. Around the bridge, other officers monitored communications from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was discovering that conquest meant nothing, when there was nothing left to conquer. Their massive invasion fleet was now an occupation force managing empty space. The Empire thinks they're fighting primitives who panicked and destroyed everything out of spite, Commander Song continued. Their intelligence reports show confused analysis. They believe we acted irrationally, that we destroyed our worlds in desperate fear. Admiral Kang turned to look at the tactical display showing the positions of Imperial forces spread thin across dead worlds. They have no idea what's coming, do they? No, Admiral. They still think they're fighting the 40, Ships they detected in our outer system. They have no concept of our true capabilities. The smile on Admiral Kang's face grew wider. Phase 1 had been a complete success. The aliens had taken the bait, spreading their forces across worthless planets, while the real human fleet remained hidden in the darkness. Now it was time for Phase 2. In the heart of a dead asteroid field, 30 light-years from the nearest star, something impossible stirred to life. The asteroid designated XK-47 had drifted through space for millions of years, appearing to be nothing more than a chunk of worthless rock and ice. But as hidden blast doors opened along its surface, the truth became clear. The asteroid was hollow, carved out over decades by automated mining drones, and converted into a massive shipyard. Inside its dark chambers, sleek warships hung in protective cradles like sleeping giants. These vessels bore no resemblance to the crude ships the Zephyrian Empire had catalogued as humanity's primitive fleet. Captain Oh Dong-hyun stood on the keen bridge of the stealth destroyer Silent Thunder, watching his crew make final preparations for launch. The ship was a work of art and science, its hull coated with adaptive camouflage that could mimic the background radiation of space itself. Its engines produced no visible emissions, and its weapons systems were designed for surgical strikes that left no witnesses. "Navigation, set course for intercept point Delta 7, he commanded quietly. "Communications, open encrypted channel to all Phantom units." Around him, similar ships were emerging from dozens of hidden bases scattered throughout the void. Rogue. Planets that had been kicked out of their solar systems eons ago had been converted into mobile shipyards. Ancient space stations disguised as dead hulks came alive with activity. Asteroid mining facilities revealed their true purpose as military staging areas. The human fleet that emerged from these hidden sanctuaries was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While the Empire had been cataloguing 40 primitive vessels, humanity had been secretly building over 400 advanced warships, using technology developed in complete isolation. "All ships, this is Phantom Leader," Captain O's voice carried across encrypted channels to strike teams positioned throughout Zephyrian-controlled space. "Operation Wildfire is now active. Remember, we are ghosts. We strike hard, we strike fast, and we disappear before they know what hit them." The first target was a Zephyrian supply convoy moving between occupied human worlds. 3 massive cargo ships, escorted by a single patrol cruiser, carrying ammunition and supplies for the occupation forces. The convoy commander, Sub-Admiral Krelthak, was reviewing inventory reports when his sensor operator screamed a warning. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. Unknown vessel approaching at attack speed." The Silent Thunder materialized out of empty space, like a predator stepping from shadows. Its hull shimmered as the adaptive camouflage shifted from deep space black to the metallic gray of active combat configuration. Weapons ports opened along its sleek frame, revealing cannon that glowed with contained energy. "Target the escort. First," Captain O ordered calmly. "Weapons free." The engagement lasted exactly 93 seconds. The Zephyrian patrol cruiser, designed to handle pirates and raiders, had no defense against weapons that seemed to bend space itself around. Their targets. Beams of coherent energy sliced through its hull like knives through paper, causing critical systems to overload in cascading chain reactions. The cargo ships tried to run, but their massive hulls made them easy targets. The human destroyers. Missiles didn't explode against their armor. They phased through it, detonating inside the ship's cores and turning vital supplies into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Within minutes, the convoy was gone. The Silent Thunder vanished back into the void, leaving only debris and confused distress signals that would take hours to reach Imperial Command. This scene repeated itself across 12 different star systems simultaneously. Human strike teams emerged from hiding to attack supply lines, communication relays, and isolated patrol groups with devastating precision. Each attack followed the same pattern: sudden appearance, overwhelming firepower, complete destruction of the target, and immediate disappearance. At the Imperial Command Center on occupied New Sol, Admiral Vextar found himself facing something no Zephyrian commander had ever encountered: a war where the enemy was invisible, until they chose to strike. "Report!" he roared, as his communication officers struggled to make sense of the disaster reports flooding in from across the occupation zone. "Sir, we've lost contact with Supply Group 7, Communication Relay Station Theta, and the 15th Patrol Squadron." His tactical officer's voice shook as he read from multiple displays. "All attacks occurred within the last 2 hours. No survivors, no wreckage large enough to analyze." Admiral Vextar studied the tactical display, showing red warning icons scattered across what should have been secure space. "So how many ships are we dealing with? What are their capabilities?" Intelligence Officer Mordak approached with a datapad full of contradictory information. "Unknown, sir. Our original estimates were completely wrong. The humans appear to have been building a secret fleet for years, possibly decades. These aren't the desperate survivors of a conquered species. This entire situation was planned from the beginning. The implications hit Vextar like a physical blow. The Empire had been played. The 40 ships they had detected were decoys, meant to lure Imperial forces into spreading thin across worthless burned worlds, while the real human fleet remained hidden in the darkness between stars. Recall all occupation forces to defensive positions," he ordered. "Cancel all patrol operations. We're not hunting primitives anymore. We're being hunted." Far from the chaos of the Imperial Command Center, Admiral Kang Hai-Wan coordinated the strikes from her mobile command ship, drifting in the safety of deep space. The bridge around her hummed with quiet efficiency as tactical officers tracked. Dozens of simultaneous operations across multiple star systems. "Strike Team 7 has eliminated the communication hub at Sector 15, Commander Song Minji reported. "Strike Team 12 successfully destroyed the ammunition depot at Kepler Station. No human casualties reported." Admiral Kang studied the tactical display showing Imperial forces in complete disarray. The Empire made a critical error. They spread their forces thin, trying to occupy our burned worlds, thinking they were facing a broken enemy. Now they're learning the price of underestimating humanity. A new report came in from the communications station. "Admiral, we're intercepting Imperial emergency channels. The Zephyrian Third Fleet is requesting immediate reinforcements. They've lost 8 supply ships and 2 escort cruisers in the last 6 hours." Commander Song looked up from her console with a grim smile. "Should we ease the pressure, Admiral? Give them time to regroup?" Admiral Kang's response was cold and precise. "Denied. Let them realize the truth. They're not conquering us anymore. They're being hunted by something they never saw coming." The hidden human fleet continued its deadly work, striking from the shadows and vanishing before Imperial forces could respond. Each attack weakened the occupation, while demonstrating a terrible truth the Empire was only beginning to understand. Humanity had been preparing for this war long before the Zephyrians ever arrived. The final confrontation began in the most unlikely of places, the empty void between star systems, where no planet existed to be conquered and no population could be enslaved. Admiral Vextar had gathered the remnants of his once mighty invasion fleet in this cold darkness, hoping to lure the human raiders into a decisive battle where Imperial firepower could finally end this nightmare. His tactical display showed 300 surviving ships arranged in perfect battle formation, their weapons charged and ready. These were the survivors of dozens of hit-and-run attacks, their crews hardened by weeks of terror as invisible enemies struck from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. "All stations report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer announced. "Long range. Sensors detect no enemy contacts." Vextar studied the empty space ahead of his fleet. They have to come eventually. Their hit-and-run tactics cannot defeat the Empire. They need a decisive victory, and this is their chance. Then space itself seemed to tear open. Not 1 or 2 hyperspace rifts, but hundreds of them, appearing simultaneously across thousands of cubic kilometers of space. The darkness exploded with brilliant flashes of light as reality bent and twisted to allow passage from the dimension beyond normal space-time. What emerged defied everything the Zephyrian Empire knew about warfare and civilization itself. The human fleet that materialized was not just a collection of warships. It was an entire civilization in motion. Massive colony ships, the size of cities, floated alongside sleek destroyers. Agricultural vessels that had been converted into mobile farms drifted near industrial platforms that could manufacture everything from medicine to advanced weapons. At the center of this impossible formation, the flagship Phoenix Rising appeared like a burning star. The ship was beautiful and terrible, its hull covered in armor that seemed to shift between different metals and energies. Captain Lim Hyun-suk stood on its bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of over 800 human vessels. "Open a channel to the Imperial flagship," she ordered quietly. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Vextar's Reptilian, features twisted in confusion and growing fear. Behind him, Zephyrian officers stared at their sensors in disbelief as they tried to count the impossible number of ships that had just appeared. "Admiral Vextar," Captain Lim's voice carried across the void with calm authority. "This is the Human Defense Force. You came to our world seeking conquest. You wanted to take our resources, enslave our people, and add our territory to your empire. But you made one critical error in your calculations." Vextar found his voice, though it cracked with uncertainty. What are you?" "Our intelligence said you had only 40 ships. How is this possible?" From another part of the human formation, Admiral Kang Hai-won's voice joined the communication. Her flagship, the mobile command center that had coordinated the guerrilla war, now revealed itself as a massive battleship bristling with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. "We are what you created when you gave us an ultimatum," she said coldly. "A species that learned the only way to remain free is to refuse to kneel no matter the cost. You cannot conquer what you cannot catch. You cannot enslave what will not stay still." The truth began to dawn on the Imperial fleet as they studied the human formation more closely. These ships were not just military vessels, they were homes. Schools, factories, farms, and research centers all combined into a mobile civilization that existed entirely in space. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. "No species can survive without worlds, without fixed bases, without the things you came to take from us," Captain Lim interrupted. "You wanted our worlds, so we gave them to you, as ash and empty. Rock. You wanted our resources, so we moved them beyond your reach. You wanted our people as slaves, so we made ourselves impossible to catch." Around the Phoenix Rising, the human fleet began a complex maneuver that looked like a dance of giants. Colony ships that had housed millions of refugees from the burned worlds revealed hidden weapon systems. Agricultural vessels opened launch bays containing fighter squadrons. Industrial platforms deployed construction robots that could double as combat units. This was not just a fleet, it was an entire spacefaring civilization that had chosen freedom over security, mobility over the comfort of fixed homes. "You see, Admiral," Admiral Kang continued, "while you were conquering dead worlds and trying to understand why we destroyed everything we had built, we were becoming something you never expected. We became a people who own nothing that can be taken, who live nowhere that can be occupied, who value nothing more than the freedom to choose our own path among the stars." The human formation began to move, not in attack formation, but in the coordinated withdrawal of a civilization on the march. Ships that had been hidden in deep space for months emerged to join the exodus, while others that had been conducting the guerrilla war seamlessly integrated into the mobile society. "This is retreat?" Vextar asked, confused by what he was seeing. "This is victory," Captain Lim replied. "You came to conquer us, but conquest requires something to hold. You came to enslave us, but slavery requires prisoners who cannot escape. You came to claim our worlds, but we have proven that we are not bound by worlds." The human fleet began entering hyperspace in coordinated groups, each ship disappearing into the dimension beyond normal space-time, with precision that spoke of years of practice. But before the flagship vanished, Admiral Kang sent one final message. "Tell your empire that humanity has joined a very short list in this galaxy, species that cannot be conquered because they refuse to be conquered. We will return to our worlds, eventually when we choose to, and we will rebuild what we destroyed. But we will do so as free people, not as subjects of any empire." The Phoenix Rising was the last ship to disappear, leaving Admiral Vextar staring at empty space and the bitter knowledge that his invasion had achieved nothing. The Empire now controlled 37 dead worlds and had lost hundreds of ships trying to fight an enemy that simply refused to be defeated. In the years that followed, the Zephyrian Empire would add humanity to the shortest and most feared list in their databases, species too dangerous to conquer. And across the galaxy, other civilizations would learn a new truth about the price of freedom. The humans had proven that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting for what you have, but from proving what you are willing to sacrifice to remain free. They had burned their own worlds to ash, rather than surrender them. And from that ash had risen something the galaxy had never seen before, an entire civilization that valued freedom more than comfort, mobility more than security, and defiance more than submission. The human fleet vanished into the infinite darkness between stars, carrying with them the knowledge that they had won, not by defeating their enemies, but by becoming something their enemies could never defeat. Years later, when human ships began returning to their burned worlds to rebuild from hidden stockpiles and carefully preserved seed banks, they would do so as the freest people in the galaxy, a civilization that had proven they could not be conquered because they refused to be anything other than free. The end.